Okay, so I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now. I am completely serious. Whatever tab you have opened, whatever video you were about to click on, whatever thing you were scrolling past, I need you to pause all of it and give me your full attention for the next few minutes, because what I am about to tell you is the kind of news that only comes around once in a very long time. And I think deep down, if you have been following BTS for any amount of time, if you have been watching this comeback unfold in real time, if you have been paying any attention at all to the way the world has been responding to BTS World Tour Erarang, then some part of you already knew that something like this was coming. You could feel it building. You could sense that the universe was lining up something massive. And today, that something massive has a name. It has a logo. And that logo has a swoosh on it. Nike and BTS are officially collaborating. For the first time in history. And before we go any further, before we get into every single detail of what this partnership actually looks like, I want you to sit with that sentence for just a moment. Nike and BTS officially collaborating for the first time in history. Because I think sometimes when we hear news like this, when it is delivered in a headline or a tweet or a TikTok caption, the magnitude of it does not fully land the way it should. We see the words and we think, okay, that is exciting, and then we keep scrolling. But this is not one of those things that should be scrolled past. This is not background noise. This is a genuinely historic moment, not just for BTS, not just for ARMY, not just for K-pop, but for the global music and fashion industry as a whole. And today on this channel, we are going to give it every single word it deserves. Let us start with the basics, because context is everything here, and I want to make sure that everyone watching this video, whether you have been in ARMY since 2013 or you discovered BTS last week, fully understands what is happening and why it matters so enormously. Nike is not just a sportswear brand. I think we all know that intellectually, but it bears saying out loud in the context of this collaboration, because Nike is a cultural institution. Nike is one of the most recognizable brands on the entire planet. The swoosh is one of the most instantly identifiable logos in human history. When Nike chooses to partner with someone, when Nike decides that an artist or an athlete or a cultural figure is worth attaching their brand to, that decision carries weight. It sends a signal. It says something about who that person is, what they represent, and what kind of cultural power they carry. Nike does not do this casually. Nike does not make these decisions lightly. And the fact that for their very first K-pop collaboration in the entire history of the brand, the name they chose was BTS, tells you everything you need to know about where BTS stands in the global cultural landscape right now. And within that collaboration, within this historic Nike x BTS partnership built around the BTS World Tour Erarang, there are two names that keep coming up again and again when ARMY talks about this announcement. Two names that the internet has been absolutely losing its mind over ever since the news dropped. Two names that represent, in many ways, the two different energies that make BTS the unstoppable force that it is. And those names are Jimin and Jungkook. ParkJimin and Jungkook. The 95-liner and the Golden Magne. The artist who has been rewriting the rules of what a Korean solo act can achieve internationally, and the artist who has been consistently described as one of the most complete performers of his generation. Together, in a Nike collection. Together, as part of a partnership that has never existed before in the history of this brand. And the internet, as you might imagine, has absolutely no idea what to do with itself right now. Let us talk about what the Nike x BTS Erarang collaboration actually consists of, because the details are genuinely exciting and there is a lot to unpack here. The partnership has two main components, and both of them are worth understanding fully because they serve very different purposes and they are going to reach fans in very different ways. The first component is the Nike by You experience. Now if you are not familiar with Nike by You, it is Nike's customization platform, the one that allows customers to personalize their Nike products, to choose colors and materials and details to create something that feels uniquely theirs rather than something pulled straight off a shelf. It is a premium experience, one that Nike reserves for moments and partnerships that they feel warrant that level of personal engagement. And for the BTS Erarang collaboration, Nike has created 10 exclusive BTS-inspired graphic designs specifically for the Nike by You experience. 10 designs. Each one drawing from the visual language of BTS, from the world of Arirang, from the aesthetic identity of one of the most visually distinctive acts in the history of popular music. These designs are going to be available at selected Nike by You locations globally starting June 1st, and they allow fans to customize their Nike apparel and tote bags using these exclusive BTS-inspired graphics. So you are not just buying a piece of merchandise. You are creating something. You are participating in the creative process in a way that feels personal and intentional and genuinely connected to the world of BTS. And then the second component is the merch collection itself. Starting June 12th, Nike and BTS are dropping dedicated tour merchandise that includes exclusive regional t-shirts, hoodies, and caps. And I want to emphasize the word regional here, because this is not a one-size-fits-all global drop. Different cities on the BTS World Tour Arirang are going to have access to different pieces, which means that if you are attending a show in Seoul, your merchandise experience is going to be different from someone attending in Los Angeles, or in Paris, or in Tokyo, or in any of the dozens of other cities on this tour. The regional exclusivity of these pieces is going to make them genuinely collectible in a way that standard tour merch simply is not, and I think ARMY already understands that these items are going to become some of the most sought-after pieces in the entire history of BTS merchandise. The design identity of the collection is something I want to spend a moment on, because whoever handled the creative direction for this collaboration clearly understood exactly what they were doing. The collection incorporates music motifs, bold typography, and a symbolic nod to all 7 members. Not 5, not 6. All 7. The identity of the collection has been built to honor the group's long journey as a whole, to reflect the 13 years that BTS has spent building something that the world has never seen before. And that deliberate inclusion of all 7 members, that intentional acknowledgement of the full BTS story, is something that I think is going to mean a great deal to fans who have been there from the beginning. Because this collaboration is not just about BTS the brand. It is about BTS the story. And Nike clearly understood that distinction. Now let us get to the part that everyone really wants to talk about, which is Jimin and Jungkook and what their presence in this collaboration means for the larger narrative that has been building around both of them throughout the Arirang World Tour era. Let us start with Jimin, because Jimin's trajectory over the past couple of years has been one of the most remarkable stories in contemporary popular music, and I do not think that is an overstatement by any stretch. When we talk about what Jimin has accomplished as a solo artist, we have to start with the numbers because the numbers are genuinely staggering. Like crazy at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The first Korean solo artist in history to achieve that. Not the first K-pop artist. The first Korean solo artist. Full stop. That is a line in the history books that has exactly one name on it, and that name is ParkJimin. And then the Face album and its incredible reception both critically and commercially. And then the world tour, where night after night, city after city, Jimin has been delivering performances that leave audiences completely speechless. The reviews have been extraordinary. The fan accounts from every city on the tour have been almost uniformly the same, which is that Jimin walked out onto that stage and something happened that nobody had words for afterward. That is the kind of performer we are talking about. That is the kind of artist that Nike is now officially associated with. And when you think about it through that lens, through the lens of what Jimin has proven himself capable of as a solo force, the Nike collaboration starts to feel not just exciting but almost inevitable. Because the biggest brands in the world go where the biggest stars are. And right now, in 2026, on a global stage, ParkJimin is operating at a level that demands that kind of recognition. And there is something about Jimin specifically that makes the Nike association particularly compelling from a brand perspective, which is the way he carries himself aesthetically. Jimin has always had an extraordinary relationship with fashion and with the visual presentation of his artistry. His partnership with Dior, which has been one of the defining fashion stories of the K-pop world over the past few years, established him as someone whose sense of style and whose ability to inhabit a brand's identity goes far beyond what most artists are capable of. He does not just wear the clothes. He becomes the clothes. He transforms them into something that feels like an extension of his artistic identity. And that same quality, that same capacity to make a brand feel personal and alive and meaningful rather than transactional, is exactly what Nike is going to benefit from by associating their Arirang collection with Jimin's presence in BTS. the swoosh and the man from Busan. And somehow, when you say it like that, it makes complete sense. Now Jungkook. John Jungkook. The Golden Magne. The youngest member of BTS and, in the opinion of a very significant portion of the global music industry, one of the most complete performing artists alive today. And I use that phrase, most complete performing artist, very deliberately, because Jungkook is one of those rare individuals who does not have a weakness. You try to find the thing he cannot do and you come up empty every time. The vocals are extraordinary, technically precise and emotionally resonant in equal measure. The dancing is at the very highest level, capable of matching BTS's main dancers while simultaneously carrying the emotional weight of lead vocal performance. The stage presence is magnetic in a way that genuinely defies easy explanation. And the solo work, particularly Seven and Standing Next to You and the projects that have followed, has demonstrated that Jungkook the solo artist is every bit as formidable as Jungkook the BTS member. Which is saying something almost incomprehensible given how formidable Jungkook the BTS member is. And then there is the cultural crossover factor, which is something that is uniquely significant when we are talking about a Nike collaboration. Because Nike, at its core, lives at the intersection of sports and culture. Nike's entire brand identity is built on the idea that athletic performance and cultural relevance are not separate things but two expressions of the same fundamental drive toward excellence. And Jungkook, perhaps more than any other K-pop artist, embodies that intersection naturally and authentically. His physicality, his athleticism, the sheer amount of physical discipline that his performances require, the way he approaches the physical demands of his artistry with the mindset of an elite athlete, all of that makes him an almost perfect fit for a Nike collaboration in a way that feels organic rather than constructed. When Jungkook wears a Nike piece from the Arirang collection, it is not going to look like a celebrity endorsement. It is going to look like the most natural thing in the world. And that authenticity is worth more to a brand like Nike than any amount of manufactured marketing. Together, Jimin and Jungkook represent something within BTS that goes beyond their individual achievements and their individual relationships with fashion and athletics. They represent a dynamic that ARMY has always understood and loved, which is the beautiful contrast between two artists who are both extraordinary and yet extraordinary in entirely different ways. Jimin brings the emotional depth, the aesthetic sophistication, the capacity to make every moment feel like it carries the weight of something profound. Jungkook brings the raw energy, the athletic precision, the golden boy magnetism that has made him one of the most followed individuals on the planet. And within the Nike x BTS Arirang collection, within these 10 exclusive designs and this tour merchandise that is going to be worn by fans across dozens of countries, both of those energies are present. Both of those spirits are woven into the fabric of what Nike and BTS have built together. Let us also talk about the timing of this collaboration, because timing in the world of brand partnerships is never accidental and the timing here is particularly significant. BTS World Tour Arirang represents the group's return to the stage after their military service hiatus, and the cultural anticipation surrounding this tour has been unlike anything the music industry has seen in years. The demand for concert tickets broke records in multiple markets. The pre-tour coverage in major media outlets was extraordinary in its volume and its enthusiasm. Rolling Stone, Billboard, major fashion publications, mainstream news organizations across the globe, all of them were writing about the BTS comeback months before the first show. And Nike, a brand that has spent 60 years developing one of the most sophisticated instincts in the entire business world for when and where to place their logo, looked at all of that cultural momentum and made a decision. They decided that the BTS World Tour Arirang was the moment. That this was the partnership. That this was the first K-pop collaboration in their history. And that decision is a statement in itself, separate from anything that appears in any press release. It says, we looked at the entire landscape of popular culture, we looked at every possible partner we could have chosen for this moment, and we chose BTS. We chose Jimin. We chose Jungkook. We chose all 7 of them. And we chose Arirang. The name Arirang itself carries a weight that I think deserves to be acknowledged in the context of this collaboration. Arirang is one of Korea's most beloved traditional folk songs, one of the most iconic pieces of Korean cultural heritage, a melody that has been sung for centuries and that carries within it something deep and elemental about Korean identity and Korean emotion. The fact that BTS chose this name for their world tour, the tour that marks their return to the stage after military service, after years of separation, after a hiatus that tested the patience and the faith of millions of fans around the world, is not a casual decision. It is a profound one. It says something about where BTS are in their journey, about their relationship with their roots, about the way they understand themselves not just as global pop stars but as Koreans whose art carries the heritage of their country into places and hearts that it might never have otherwise reached. And Nike, by choosing to build their first K-pop collaboration around BTS World Tour Arirang, has implicitly endorsed that story. Has said, yes, we see what this tour represents. We see the homecoming. We see the history. We see the depth. And we want to be part of it. The Nike Bayou customization experience, with its 10 exclusive BTS-inspired designs, is going to create something remarkable and genuinely unprecedented, which is Nike products that are simultaneously global brand items and deeply personal BTS artifacts. A fan in Manila who customizes their sneakers using one of the Arirang-inspired designs is not just buying shoes. They are creating a physical object that connects them to this specific moment in BTS history, to this comeback, to this tour, to these 10 designs that were made specifically for this collaboration and will never exist in quite this form again. And that object, that customized pair of shoes or that personalized tote bag, is going to carry meaning for that fan that no standard retail product could ever carry. That is what the Nike Bayou experience does at its best, and having BTS at the center of it for this particular moment feels genuinely special. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge what this collaboration means for the broader conversation about K-pop's place in global culture, because I think it is easy to get caught up in the excitement of Nike and BTS and the specifics of what Jimin and Jungkook bring to this partnership, and miss the larger significance of what is actually happening here. Nike making their first ever K-pop collaboration in 2026, choosing BTS for that historic first, is a statement about where Korean popular culture now stands in the global hierarchy of cultural influence. 20 years ago, the idea of the world's biggest sportswear brand building a collection around a Korean pop group would have been genuinely unthinkable. 10 years ago, even as BTS was beginning to build their international fan base, it would still have seemed like a distant dream. But here we are. Here it is. Nike x BTS. The swoosh and the 7. And the fact that Jimin and Jungkook, two men from Korea, two artists who grew up dreaming of stages that seemed impossibly far away, are now at the center of one of the most significant brand collaborations in the history of popular music, is something that deserves to be celebrated loudly and without apology. ARMY has always known that BTS was capable of this. Has always believed, through every obstacle and every period of uncertainty, that the world would eventually catch up to what they already understood about these 7 men. And today, with Nike's swoosh officially attached to the BTS name, with 10 exclusive designs inspired by the world of Arirang, with tour merchandise that is going to be worn on every continent on Earth, the world has caught up. The world has arrived. And ARMY gets to say, without any smugness but with a great deal of justified pride, that they knew. They always knew. The regional exclusive pieces from this collection are going to become artifacts. I want to be very clear about that prediction because I believe it completely. The t-shirts and hoodies and caps that are only available in specific cities on the Arirang tour are going to be among the most sought-after items in the entire history of BTS merchandise, not just because they are Nike quality, not just because the designs are beautiful, but because they are time-stamped. Because they say, I was there. I was in Seoul on June 12th, or I was in Los Angeles, or I was in Paris, or I was in Tokyo, and I was part of this specific moment in history when Nike and BTS came together for the first time, when Jimin and Jungkook and their 6 brothers stood on those stages and gave everything they had to audiences who had been waiting years for this comeback. Those pieces are going to be pulled out of closets decades from now and shown to people who were not there, and those people are going to understand immediately why they were kept. And for the fans who cannot attend the tour in person, for the millions of ARMY members around the world who are not going to be standing in those stadiums but whose love for BTS is no less real and no less passionate, the Nike Bayou experience and the online availability of certain pieces from the collection means that this collaboration is not only for the people who were lucky enough to get a ticket. It is for all of ARMY. It is for the person in a small town who has been a fan since they stumbled across a BTS video at 2 in the morning and felt something shift inside them that they still cannot fully explain. It is for the ARMY member who has listened to every album, watched every Run BTS episode, cried at every concert film, and never once stopped believing that this group was capable of the kind of impact that the world is now being forced to acknowledge. This collection is for all of them. Nike and BTS made something for all of them. And I think that matters more than any revenue figure or any chart position or any industry metric could ever convey. So here is where we are. Nike, for the first time in their 60-year history, has officially partnered with a K-pop act. That act is BTS. The collection is built around BTS World Tour Arirang, one of the most anticipated concert tours of this decade. The Nike By You experience features 10 exclusive BTS-inspired designs for customizable apparel and accessories. The tour merch collection launches June 12 with regional exclusive t-shirts, hoodies, and caps across dozens of cities worldwide. Jimin and Jungkook, two of the most celebrated performers of their generation, are at the heart of a collaboration that is already rewriting the relationship between global sportswear brands and Korean popular culture. And ARMY, as always, is showing up for every single moment of it with the kind of passion and dedication that makes the rest of the world stop and stare. This is not just a collab. This is not just merch. This is a milestone. This is Nike and BTS standing together and saying to the world, without any ambiguity and without any hesitation, that K-pop belongs at the highest table. That BTS belongs at the highest table. That Jimin and Jungkook and RM and Jin and Suga and J-Hope and V belong at the highest table. That 13 years of work and sacrifice in music and love have earned them a seat next to the biggest names in global culture. And the swoosh on that seat was a long time coming. Thank you so much for watching this all the way through. It genuinely means the world to me that you are here for content like this. Please hit the like button if this video gave you even a fraction of the excitement that writing it gave me. Leave a comment below telling me which piece from the Nike x BTS Arirang collection you were most excited about, whether that is the Nike By You customization or the regional tour merch. Subscribe if you have not already because there is so much more BTS content coming to this channel over the next few weeks and months, and I will see you in the very next video. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And purple you always. Purple.